Okay, so you know how we've been like really digging into this whole idea of building a life that's truly prosperous.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like, financially, but like in every sense of the word.
Right,
It's
right.
like this feeling of wanting success that lasts, you know, success that isn't built on like shaky ground. Have you been feeling that too?
Absolutely. And that's where I think James Allen's work is so relevant. Like his book, Eight Pillars of Prosperity,
Yeah.
it's like a framework for understanding how moral principles, believe it or not, underpin lasting achievement. And not just in like one area of life. We're talking about everything.
It's interesting because I feel like we often separate those two things, right? Like morality is over here and success is over there. But Alan was saying they're totally connected.
Completely intertwined. He believed in this concept called moral causation. Basically, the idea that our thoughts and actions are like seeds.
Okay, I like that.
So just like an apple seed, right?
Right.
It's always going to grow into an apple tree. It can't grow into an orange tree.
Right, right.
Our inner choices shape our outer reality in the same way. It's like a law of nature almost.
So it's not even about like being good to get a reward or anything like that. It's about understanding that there's this natural law at play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like something that governs how our inner world, our thoughts and actions actually manifest in our experiences out in the world.
exactly. And just like if you ignore the law of gravity, what happens? You fall. Right. Well, Alan would say if you ignore these moral laws, you're setting yourself up for instability, for ruin even.
Okay, that makes total sense. But how do we actually apply that? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, that's where the eight pillars come in.
Right.
These are the qualities that Alan says we can cultivate to build that solid foundation for success. And guess what the first one is?
I'm going to guess integrity. Is that too obvious?
Good guess. That's actually number three, but a very important one we'll get to. The first one is energy.
Energy. Okay, so like working out and eating healthy.
That's part of it for sure.
Right.
Physical energy is important. But Alan is talking about something deeper. It's more like this inner drive, this refusal to just be complacent, passive.
Okay, so like motivation and ambition.
Yeah, but even stronger than that. He actually calls laziness a vice.
Whoa,
Yeah.
a vice. That's kind of intense.
It is. And he even quotes St. John, who said, I would have you either hot or cold. If you are lukewarm, I will spew you out of my mouth.
It's a pretty intense image, like being spit out of someone's mouth.
Right. But it gets the point across. Alan is saying we're designed for action, for engagement, and every bit of potential we don't use, every moment we waste in apathy, it's a missed opportunity to create the life we truly want.
So it's not about like working ourselves to death. It's about being really conscious about how we direct our energy, right?
Exactly. Disciplined effort aligned with a clear purpose. It's interesting because this actually connects to something that's so popular these days, productivity.
Oh, totally. Everyone's obsessed with productivity hacks and tips and all that.
Yeah. But it's not about being busy just for the sake of being busy. It's about aligning our efforts with our values and, working smart towards our goals.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got energy. What's the second pillar?
The second one is economy.
Economy.
No.
Okay. So is this about like budgeting and saving money?
Well, that's part of it, but Alan's definition of economy is actually much broader than that. He's talking about all our resources, our time, energy, money, even our stuff, our possessions.
Okay. So like minimalism. Is that what he's getting at?
Kind of. He's urging us to be mindful, really mindful, of how we use what we've got. He's saying we should avoid waste, extravagance, and really just focus on what truly matters.
He even has some pretty strong words for people who have those like overflowing closets full of clothes. It's like he's saying, what are you really trying to fill with all that stuff?
Exactly. He saw extravagance as this sign of insecurity, like a need to impress others rather than focusing on, inner substance.
That's so true. It's like all that stuff becomes a distraction from what really matters.
Yeah. And for Alan, true prosperity was about using our resources effectively,
Yeah.
to create a meaningful life, a fulfilling life, not just accumulating things for the sake of it.
That is so relevant, especially today with all the consumerism and like pressure to buy.
It's everywhere.
It's so easy to lose sight of what's actually valuable when you're bombarded with all those messages.
Absolutely. But Alan is challenging us to question those messages, to like really define success on our own terms, not based on what someone else tells us is important.
Love that. Okay, so we've got focused action with energy. We've got mindful resource management with economy. I'm going to guess the next one has to be integrity, right?
You got it. Integrity is number 3.
It seems like a no-brainer, but I'm super curious to hear how Alan framed it.
Yeah, this one is key. So for Alan, integrity was like the bedrock of lasting success. He believed that if you didn't have it, any achievement, any success would eventually crumble.
It's like that saying, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?
Exactly. And he wasn't just talking about honesty in like business deals, although that was obviously a big part of it,
Right.
but he saw integrity as this deeper alignment between your actions and your principles, even when no one's watching, you know?
It's like that saying, integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody's watching.
Exactly. He actually compares a business built without integrity to a house built on sand.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Bound to be swept away by the first storm.
You know, what's striking me about Alan so far is like this total refusal to separate, being a good person from achieving real lasting success.
It's all connected, he's saying.
It's not one or the other. They're
Yeah.
completely inseparable.
And that's what's so radical about his perspective. Because even today, we tend to compartmentalize these things, like business is over here and ethics is over there, and never the two shall meet, right?
Right. It's like we think they operate by totally different rules. But Alan is saying no. True prosperity, that sense of, deep fulfillment, that lasting sense of well-being, it can only come from a foundation of strong moral principles.
Okay, I'm with him so far. So we've got energy, economy, integrity. What's next?
Pillar number 4 is system.
System. See, this one kind of throws me for a loop. Like, how does system fit into this whole idea of building a life of true prosperity?
Okay, so think of system as the structure that supports and amplifies all those other virtues, the energy, the economy, the integrity.
Okay.
Alan was a huge believer in organization and efficiency, and not just in like business, but in every area of life.
So like time management and organization.
That's a big part of it. He believed that a scattered mind leads to scattered results.
Oh, that's so true. If you're all over the place, it's hard to get anything done.
Exactly. He uses this example of like literature. It's this huge, complex world of ideas, right? But it's all built from the systematic arrangement of what, just 26 letters?
Wow. When you put it like that. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right. It highlights how order and method, having a system, can unlock incredible potential. But without a system for managing our time, our energy, our resources, we just end up like reacting to chaos.
Instead of being proactive and creating the life we want.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it. System is key.
It's the scaffolding that holds everything together. So those first 4 pillars we've discussed, energy, economy, integrity, system, think of those as like the foundation of the temple of prosperity that Alan's describing.
I love that visual. Okay, so what are the pillars that build on top of that foundation?
Well, there are 4 more. And these are the ones that I find particularly fascinating, almost unexpected.
Ooh, okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They speak to this deeper level of Alan's philosophy. He understood that true prosperity wasn't just about like individual achievement. It was about our connection to others, the quality of our relationships. It's about the bigger picture.
And that's where the 5th pillar comes in, right? Sympathy.
You got it. Sympathy.
Honestly, I mean, who would thought that sympathy, really connecting with other people would be a key to success? It just seems kind of counterintuitive, especially in today's world where it's all about competition and self-promotion.
It's true, but Alan makes a really compelling case for it. He argues that connecting with others, truly understanding where they're coming from, it's essential for gaining real insight and influence too.
It's funny because when you think about it, a lot of the mistakes we make, the times we really mess up, are because we're so stuck in our own heads, like we can't see beyond our own limited point of view.
Exactly, and that's what Alan wants us to challenge. He actually quotes Balzac, who said something like, "I can feel a beggar's rags on my own back." He's talking about the power of empathy.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really powerful.
Right. It's about expanding our understanding of the human experience, and it's something we can all cultivate.
It makes me think about those people, those really charismatic people who can just effortlessly connect with anyone.
Oh, yeah. They walk into a room, and it's like they just light it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're trying to impress anyone or be the center of attention. It's almost like they see the value in everyone they encounter.
They really see them.
Yeah, and that allows them to connect on this really genuine level. It's amazing.
Do you think that's something people are born with, or is it something you can learn?
I think it's definitely something you can cultivate, and that's what's so exciting about Alan's work. It's not just about these, like, lofty ideals. It's practical. He's offering a path for personal transformation.
I love that. Okay, so tell me more about those last 3 pillars. We've got energy, economy, integrity, system, and sympathy. So what are the last three that build on top of all that?
Okay, so the next one, the sixth pillar, is sincerity.
Sincerity. Okay, so like being honest and authentic.
Exactly. Alan believed that if you build your life on facades,
Yeah.
on trying to be someone you're not, it's like,
Yeah.
well, he actually compares it to building a house on a foundation of sand.
Oh, right. We were just talking about that with integrity. Exactly. It's all connected. He's saying that without sincerity, without that genuine connection between who you are on the inside and how you're showing up in the world, eventually it's all going to
It
crumble.
makes sense. You can't fake it
Or
forever.
exactly. And he actually compares insincere people to counterfeit coins. Like, eventually their true value is going to be exposed.
Ooh, I like that analogy because if you're a counterfeit coin, no one wants to trade with you.
Precisely. And it speaks to this really practical consequence of lacking sincerity. Because in a world, in any kind of collaborative endeavor, really, but especially in the business world, trust is everything.
Oh, absolutely. Trust is foundational.
Right. So being genuine, being sincere, it's not just some like nice to have quality, it's essential.
It makes me think about those figures in history. Those people who've really had a lasting positive impact on the world. It's rarely the ones who are all flash and no substance.
It's the ones who walk the talk.
Exactly. It's the ones who genuinely lived their values, even when it was difficult, even when no one was watching. Their sincerity just shines through.
It echoes through history, and that actually connects really beautifully to the next pillar, which is impartiality.
Impartiality. Okay, so being fair and unbiased.
Exactly. Allen saw prejudice and bias as not just moral failings, which they are, but as roadblocks to true understanding.
Because if we're constantly looking at the world through our own narrow lens, clinging to our own preconceived notions, we're never really going to see things clearly.
We're going to miss so much. We're going to misjudge situations. We're going to misjudge people. We're going to miss opportunities.
And probably alienate a lot of people along the way.
For sure. Allen believed that the impartial mind, the mind that really strives to see all sides of an issue, that weighs the evidence objectively, that's the mind that's most likely to achieve lasting success.
It's about removing the ego from the equation.
Exactly. Not letting our own insecurities or biases cloud our judgment. It's about being willing to be wrong.
Being open to new information.
Yes, and to having your mind changed.
Which can be really hard.
It's definitely a practice, but that's what he's saying is so important for growth and ultimately for true prosperity.
It makes me think about those people who can navigate like different social circles, different cultures even, with this incredible grace and ease.
They just seem to flow through life.
And it's because they're not approaching each interaction with a preloaded judgment. They're genuinely curious.
They're present.
Yes. And that allows them to really see the value in everyone they encounter.
Beautifully said. It's that openness, that willingness to be surprised by the world, to be surprised by people, that Allen believed was so essential for true growth and, ultimately, for lasting prosperity.
I love that. Okay, so that was impartiality. What about the final pillar?
Okay, so the eighth pillar is self-reliance.
Self-reliance. I think this one is so, so important, especially today.
It's huge.
Because there's just so much emphasis on external validation, right? Like we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for approval.
Social media has just amplified that so much.
Totally. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that your worth is determined by how many likes you get or how many money you make or what other people think of you.
And Allen is saying, no, no, no. You have to cultivate that inner strength.
Yes. That inner knowing that you have what it takes to face whatever life throws at you.
To overcome the setbacks, to create the life you want, regardless of what anyone else says or thinks.
It's called trusting yourself,
Yeah.
your own judgment, your own instincts.
That's where true freedom lies. And he actually uses the analogy of a baby learning to walk. At first, the baby needs constant support, right?
Totally. Someone's got to hold them up.
But eventually, the baby has to let go and find its own balance.
Which can be scary, both for the baby and for the parents.
For sure. But that's how the baby grows. That's how the baby develops that strength and coordination.
It's the same with us. If we're always clinging to something outside of ourselves for support, we never develop that inner fortitude.
Exactly. And Allen is saying that's where true prosperity comes from that inner knowing, that self-trust that allows you to stand strong no matter what's happening around you.
So good. Okay, so to recap, we've got sincerity, impartiality, and self-reliance as the final three pillars. And those build on top of energy, economy, integrity, and system. I mean, this is quite the framework.
It's pretty comprehensive, right?
It is. And it's amazing how interconnected these pillars are. Like, it's not enough to just focus on one or two. They all kind of work together, don't they?
They really do. It's like they support and reinforce each other. And Alan believed that even just taking small steps in the direction of these virtues could lead to massive positive changes in your life.
I love that because it makes it feel achievable. Like
Yeah,
you don't have to be perfect in all 8 areas to start seeing the benefit.
exactly. It's a journey, a process of continuous growth and self-discovery.
It's like each of these pillars is like its own little world, you know? Like we could spend hours unpacking each one.
Totally. Each one is so nuanced, so rich with like practical wisdom.
But then when you take a step back and you see them all together,
Yeah.
as this whole system, it paints this really beautiful picture of what it means to live a truly, like, capital P, prosperous life.
It's like building a mosaic, right?
Yeah.
You've got all these individual pieces, but it's the way they fit together that creates the masterpiece.
Okay, I love that analogy. So, okay, let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, all right, I'm convinced these 8 pillars are the real deal. Where do I even begin? And what would Alan say is, like, the first step? How do we actually start putting these principles into practice?
It's funny because I was just rereading a passage from Eight Pillars this morning and it jumped out at me. He says, "So true is this, that to know a man's moral status would be to know to mathematically gauge his ultimate success or failure."
Whoa. Okay, that's a bold statement. He's saying our moral compass is basically the most accurate predictor of how successful we'll be, like in every area of life.
Yeah, and it's not about like judging ourselves or comparing ourselves to other people. It's about recognizing that our moral choices have this ripple effect.
They shape our reality.
Yes. He actually goes on to say that moral force is the life of all true success and the sustaining element in all true prosperity. So again, it's not about being good for some like external reward. It's about understanding that these principles, these 8 pillars, they're just some abstract ideals.
They're like the master key that unlocks true, lasting fulfillment.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to this idea of like what prosperity really means. Because Alan's definition is so much bigger than what we usually think of, right?
Oh, yeah. He's not just talking about money and material possessions. He's talking about like the whole picture.
Our health, our
Yeah.
relationships, our creative expression, our contribution to the world.
Our sense of inner peace, our alignment with our values.
It's about cultivating a life that feels meaningful and deeply satisfying on every single level.
That's real. Yeah, it's this old English word that Alan uses. It means like overall well-being. And that's what he's saying is the ultimate measure of a truly prosperous life.
I love that. Wheel. Okay, so as we wrap up here, I just want to say this deep dive has been incredible. It's like Alan's work is so relevant, even or maybe especially in today's world.
I completely agree. He's speaking to something so timeless, so universal about the human experience.
It's like we all have this innate desire for true prosperity, for that deep sense of fulfillment that goes beyond just fleeting moments of happiness.
Absolutely. And Alan is giving us the roadmap. It's not always easy, but it's a path worth taking.
So to everyone listening, if you're feeling called to explore these 8 pillars in more depth, we highly encourage you to pick up a copy of 8 Pillars of Prosperity by James Allen. And in the meantime, just start with one small step. Choose one pillar that resonates with you and see how you can weave it into your life, starting today.
Just one small step, and then another, and then another. That's how we build that unshakable foundation for a life of true prosperity.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.